The target of cost engineering is to define a cost model which delivers all cost types and the profit margin of a supplier. The typical cost model for packaging materials will take the purchase price of an individual material and split this price into feedstock materials, machine and mold depreciation, direct labor, machine repair and maintenance, energy, inbound logistics, utilities, workshop, factory overheads inclusive quality control, sales and marketing, development, administration and management, and finally, profit and capital cost. It is typical for such an analysis that higher cost types are less a function of the specification of the individual packaging item, but rather an allocation key of the cost center cost using volumes, weights, and surfaces. Hence, cost types beyond direct production cost lose meaning, and it is often better to consider profit contribution after direct production cost rather than isolating the profit at full costing. However, it is the intention of the cost model to understand the profit margin or profit contribution situation of the supplier in order to improve the buyer's negotiation position. If the cost model concludes that the supplier has a very high profit margin, tough bargaining may result in a lower price. On the other hand, when the profit margin of the supplier is very low, putting further pressure on the supplier will unlikely yield to a lower price of the packaging item. To the contrary, a very low profit margin of the supplier indicates the risk that the supplier may increase the price in the future or even discontinue the supply entirely. Cost modeling is normally an exercise which is conducted only by the buyer using pieces of information provided by the supplier and collected over time. Suppliers are normally not cooperative when buyers design cost models, as they feel that their entrepreneurial freedom is infringed. Especially when it boils down negotiating supplier margins, accepting cost models would mean for the supplier that all savings the supplier makes by increasing his own productivity are automatically passed on to the buyer in the form of reduced prices. This is not a very motivating climate for the supplier to do such investments, as he will always do those investments to increase his competitiveness in order to maintain or grow his business, as well as to increase his profit margin. The K method with its price formulas also uses breakdowns, but these breakdowns are price breakdowns and not cost breakdowns, which is a significant difference. Individual cost types like machine depreciation or labor are not considered at any point of time. Especially the supplier's profit or the profit contribution is not assumed or disclosed. This means in return that all cost elements and all profit elements are capsuled in every price element. Yes, it is recommended by the K method that every price element delivers the same profit margin to the supplier, but this recommendation is made to avoid negative effects for both the supplier and the buyer when the volume mix changes. However, the profit of the supplier is never disclosed, and it is up to him to gear it in such a way that he maximizes his profit and still keeps the business with the buyer. In contrast to cost engineering, where the buyer prefers to stay with the supplier and is looking for a sound story to support his requirement to lower prices, the K method will not use bargaining as a negotiation method. The K method is a method for true commodification of packaging materials, and therefore it delivers the best prices by tendering in the market and making use of the buyer's full volume leverage. So the competitiveness in the marketplace plays with the K method a much more important role than granting acceptable profit margins to the supplier, which is the approach of the cost engineering.